Hey everybody, welcome back to the G5 Family channel. Hope you're having a great day. And thanks for clicking into this video. I hope you find it helpful, informative, entertaining, all that good stuff. So you would have seen in the title and the thumbnail that today's topic is about what your Filipina wife may want, may expect, may need, may desire, hope for, all of those kinds of things, but might be a little shy about saying so or about making her requirements known. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but I have heard a lot of guys talking about this exact thing, you know, with all of their requirements and their deal breakers. And guess what? By the way, I had my requirements and my deal breakers too. It's an important part of the process. In any case, this video is sort of the reverse angle. After being married to a Filipina for 10 years and after living in the Philippines for the last 4.5 years, I've learned a little bit about the dynamics and how misunderstandings can happen, how things can be thought to be agreed upon, and turns out there was either a misunderstanding or maybe even a lack of memory of the conversation. I know it's typical male for, I don't remember talking about that. I don't remember agreeing to that. So that can happen. But on the Filipina side, it can be a misunderstanding, due to a language barrier, a misunderstanding of a phrasing or even a slang. And suddenly you are not aligned, and 6 months later, 2 years later, you've got a major problem. And so, as I said, I had my requirements, my deal breakers. What we need to realize is she might also, she might have some preferences and some deal breakers. So one of the things that I have mentioned to friends is that, when these misunderstandings happen, if at the beginning, if in that get to know you phase, if it seems like she's agreeing to everything and you're just thinking, wow, this is fantastic, she's agreeing to everything I'm saying, how unlikely is that in reality? So for me and for you, that should be a red flag. So immediately you begin to question, now wait a minute, it's impossible that she's agreeing with me on every single thing. Now, she might be agreeing, out of passion for the relationship, out of this newfound love, so those are things that are possible too. So the way I dealt with that is, over the months that we talked, we met on Christian Filipina online dating site. So before I even traveled to the Philippines to meet her in the first place, I sort of kind of grilled her in a loving way, but I grilled her on the points to make sure that I understood and make sure that she understood, and to draw her out, to sort of make sure that she voices her desires, the things that are important to her. And by doing that, there have been, as far as the important things, there have been very, very few issues. I mean, very few disagreements. For the most part, our marriage has been really, we have had our disagreements, but not on the important issues. So let me get into the important issues. What are they? I think, especially for guys that are just beginning this journey, I think this is really important. One of the main things is children. Yes or no? Are we going to have children? Not going to have children? Do I want children? Do I not want children? Let me tell you, 9.9 out of 10 Filipinas are going to want to have kids. That's just it. They're going to want to have babies. That's the way, that's the culture. It's primarily a Catholic culture in the Philippines, and Catholics don't believe in birth control. So yeah, they have a lot of kids. So she's growing up with the plans of getting married and having children. That's just the way she's wired. So you need to understand that. And if you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and you've decided, hey, I've got grown children, I don't really want to start, with new kids, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But you just need to be aware of the fact that she might want kids. And so how do you factor that? You know, is that a deal breaker? Maybe, you know, and I wouldn't put any pressure on her, because here's the thing. If you force it, or if you talk her into something and she agrees, I guarantee you down the road it's going to be a problem. Now, there are exceptions. If she's older, you know, she's been married before, she has children from a previous relationship, you know, she might be okay to agree to no children. But I know of single moms who have married and still wanted to have children. So number 2 is supporting the family. Supporting the family. Now, I'm sure you've heard people talk about this. I know I've heard a lot of people talking about that. There's a lot of different, you know, thoughts and concepts on that. You know, in American culture, we don't necessarily have to support our parents financially. Typically in America, the parents have gotten their retirement worked out. But when they get older and they can no longer take care of themselves, then yeah, as kids, we sort of figure out, okay, you know, how do we take care of mom and dad? Here in the Philippines, you need to understand that right behind having children or not is going to be supporting her family. If you're not willing to help her, she's going to find a way. She's going to go get a job. She is going to find a way to help her parents financially. In our case, we have provided them with their, you know, primary needs ever since day one, ever since we got married. And in the last year, we've actually moved them into our house because my wife's mother developed severe diabetes, and so to maintain her meds and her diet and things like that, we just brought them and had them move into the house. So they live here. For you, and having that conversation, you need to realize that that's going to be something that she's going to expect, or she is going to find a way to do. So you just need to be aware of that. And then number 3, and this is a lot looser, but it's still an important thing that you need to consider. It's something that you need to talk about, is, are you going to live in the U.S. or your home country, or are you going to live in the Philippines? For us, I wasn't in a position at that point to move to the Philippines. Now, after we got married, I started wanting to move to the Philippines, and then that whole thing took its course, and here we are. But at least in the beginning, I was not in a position where I could. So what if your Filipina really doesn't want to leave home and family and everything she knows to go abroad? What makes it even trickier? What if she has children, and leaving the Philippines means leaving her children behind, because maybe you don't want to bring her children to the U.S. It's possible. It's a process, but it's possible. So is she going to want to do that? Now, I will say that most Filipinas are going to be open to, you know, leaving the Philippines and moving to another country. And some Filipinos are going to want to, just outright. But it's a conversation that you need to have. It's a conversation that you need to discuss and decide on yay or nay, or whatever, you know, the situation is. I brought her to the U.S. She lived there for 5 years. She got her U.S. citizenship, and that's great, because if something ever happens to me, she can travel back and forth between the U.S. and the Philippines, no visa issues. The kids are dual citizen as well, so, you know, she can come and go as she pleases. If she was not a U.S. citizen, it wouldn't be that easy. So, there's some benefits to bringing your Filipina to the U.S. Despite, again, I hear a lot of guys talking, oh, you don't want to take your Filipina to America because she'll Americanize. And, you know, well, my wife lived in the U.S. for 5 years, and she's still every bit the Filipina. Well, I'll say she's a little influenced by American.
Or are you talking to?
Nobody. This is my Filipina. If you watch our videos, you've met her before.
Bye-bye.
So the whole point of this video is just to talk about the things that you need to decide before you jump into marriage. It's just like with any marriage. You just got to know, but you have to go a little bit farther because the Filipina is shy. She's not necessarily going to make her requirements or deal breakers known. You know, it's really up to us. She just walked off, but I found out later, this was after the fact, her one and only concern was that I not have children. And she preferred that I was never married before. But in any case, I didn't have children, so it's all good. Just as a little tag on to the whole living in the US or the Philippines or whatever, I do recommend getting her citizenship. Like, as I said a minute ago, we did that, and as a result, she can travel back and forth without any visa issues. She carries both a US passport and a Philippines passport. Number 4 on my list, and this is by no means less important than children, less important than, you know, the other things that I've mentioned, is religion. I don't really like to use that word because that word is so broad, but you know, her faith. What is her belief? And no matter what your faith is or what your background or you know, what church your mom and dad went to when you were growing up, apart from all that, you just need to be sure that your beliefs are aligned. And that's so incredibly important, again, because, you know, differences in faith, differences in your spiritual beliefs can cause problems. And just remember that in the Philippines, the dominant religion is Catholic. And so most people are raised Catholic and have those, whether they're active or not, you know, whether they attend Mass on a regular basis or not. You know, that's generally going to be their belief system. Again, when I began chatting with my wife on Christian Filipina, I discovered that yes, she did grow up Catholic, but in her early teen years, when she's about 13 or 14, she converted to Baptist. And so it was perfect. Our beliefs were perfectly aligned. Our interpretation of Scripture is perfectly aligned, and that has never been any sort of issue. We're 100% in agreement in terms of faith and our Christian beliefs. Okay, now this last one is, while it's very important, it's actually just a little bit of a funny story. Early on, she's like, we're at the grocery store, and I'm like, okay, what else do we need? And she's like, can we get some rice? I'm like, yeah, let's get some rice. So we go over to the shelf, we get a 5-pounder of rice. Well, that lasts her a day or two, and then she's needing more rice. And then, so the funny story is, how did I not know that I would need to keep her stocked up on rice? It went from being a 5-pound bag to being a 10-pound bag to being a 20 or 2 10-pounders to a 20-pounder to going to Sam's and buying a 40-pound bag because she ate mounds of rice with every single meal. And now, after all these years, I'm actually a pretty active rice eater myself. Anyway, these dogs are barking, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Hopefully this is good information for you. As always, if you have any questions or even any agreements, disagreements, I love the comments. And if you have commented before, you know that I'm very responsive. So yeah, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next video. All right, see you, bye-bye.